Hello dear learners, let me continue the discussion on leadership that I've started in the previous session. In the previous session I have talked about a very basic understanding of leadership without any contextual attachments to the concept in terms of public and private sector. I've talked about leadership as a complex phenomenon involving leaders, followers and situation as per the definition proposed by Hughes and colleagues. I also talked about the interactional framework proposed in the text there also, and I have given you a small assignment in the sense that after understanding the roles of the leaders, I have asked you to think of some of the important qualities or the skills that you think that the leaders need to learn or develop in order to be effective leaders, right? I hope that you have read some the articles or open your own understanding of the material. So I think that you have gone through it. Let us understand if whatever I'm going to discuss in terms of skills if matches with your understanding of the skills, right? So talk about what skills, talking about in terms of training and learning. So if we talk about the skills, there are skill sets. If we can see these are the skill sets which are important, we can then talk about the aspect of learning also. What do you think about the roles of the leaders, and then the skill set they need to get trained on, so that we can also talk about whether leaders can be trained or not, right? Now, if you look at the roles of the leaders which I have talked about in the previous the session, we talked about they help in creating the supporting environment for performance, right? So when they are playing this role, what do you think that they need to, what kind of skills they should have in order to create the environment which is supportive for the colleagues to do? So what they have to have the focus on interpersonal skills, right? They should be focused on how they focus on trust building. This is the important skill set. They need to build relationships, and in that way they have to focus on interpersonal skills, right? Trust building, initiating the conversations with the followers, trying to understand their viewpoints, right? All these things are very, very important in terms of creating the supporting environment for people. They also should have a good I would say in terms of interpersonal skills, listening skills, understanding the viewpoint of the followers, what they would want, what kind of resources they want, what kind of things they would expect leader to do for them. So all these are part of the important interpersonal skills, right? How you understand your followers, how you make things things available for these people so that they can perform better, right? Another thing is decision making is also very important, right? As a skill. Also how you take care of the conflicts of the people. So these are some of the important skill set that require attention in terms of leaders should develop these kind of interpersonal skills to take care of the issues, because they need to handle people, they need to work with people. Sometimes they also have to work according to things. Also understanding the viewpoints of people in terms of what they think about how the things are going on in terms of feedback. So that's another important interpersonal skill, because this is going to then help them even improve the processes in the organizational further, right? So in terms of creating supportive environment for the organization, so it is important that they focus on these kind of skill sets, right? Another thing is when you are trying to motivate people, when you are trying to guide them, coach them, another important skill which is required is communication, right? And please imagine the context of the public sector organization, when you are not only communicating within the organization, there a lot of communication. See, in private sector also a lot of communication happen beyond the boundary of the organization. But in case of public sector organization, when you have lot of influence outside, there are citizens, there are interest groups, then there is the media, then there are local public agencies, local bodies there, non-government organization, political authority. So leaders should also have much more persuasive communication skills, right? They should be having much more convincing, the skills which are convincing, because you have to remember, you have to negotiate with lot of people, because you see that if you talk about the public organization, we'll say we have a lot of goal multiplicity is there, multiple goals are to be taken care of. So how will you negotiate? For negotiation to happen, you have to have convincing communication skills, right? Not only that, you also have to sometime pass on information in terms of writing emails to the colleagues or the outside. How you communicate with the outside world, maybe these days social media is another way of communicating with people, and largely when you are reaching out to the masses, another. So your writing communication is also very important, how you deal with this particular aspect, how you write the reports. Also sometimes in terms of the difficult times, you need to talk to your employees. If you cannot reach to one by one verbal communication, you need to write to them effectively. So this is another important skill which is worth consideration in terms of discussion on what kind of skills are important for the leaders, right? Then in terms of inspiring and motivating people, and change processes in the organization. For change processes, what is the important thing is, for change, understanding of vision is important. Development, vision development, that's another important. The leaders' own vision development. What is their own vision of taking organization from one state to the another? That's very important. As far as we talk about the change process and how they have to manage the learning in terms of self-management. So vision development is one important thing. In terms of self-development, also how to manage emotions. We talked about emotional intelligence. You please refer to the work of Daniel Goleman on emotional intelligence. Very well cited work, very interesting work, in terms of self-management skill and personal development. So that's another important thing, how leaders manage their emotions, work on their personal and professional development, right? Work on the effective communication skills. Interpersonal skills are important, how they inspire people. So in terms of also becoming expert in the field is another skill. Becoming expert in the field is another important skill that is important, because when you are expert, what will happen? Your credibility goes up, right? People will trust you, right? And with your expertise, your knowledge, people will look forward to you for guidance, or opinions, or support, or things like that, right? Focus on self-development. Learn the art of engaging people. How will you engage people? Engaging is important. How will you engage people is the another important thing that you can think of in terms of the skill. When you have to engage people, you have to do what? When you inspire people, you can act as role models, right? You demonstrate the values of your organization, your value of being credible, being transparent, high level of integrity and consistency in your behavior. What happens is, will actually help you develop that kind of relationship with your followers, and they are going to be having high level of trust in you as a leader, and the success will be then guaranteed, right? In terms of performance I'm talking about. So we see there are large number of things which can be developed, the leaders can focus on, starting from self development, to the interpersonal skills, to the becoming expert in the field, taking care of the communication and the aspects like that. So all these things are very important in terms of the leadership skills, right? So if we know that these are some of the skills which are important as far as the roles of leaders are concerned, so why not we can't think of training, training leaders and helping them become better leaders, or developing leadership within the organization. So you will be surprised, and you will not be surprised to that there are large number of global business schools who have these leadership development workshops for the top leaders of the organization. Why do you think they are much more prevalent? Why do you think these kind of workshop exist? These workshop exist because of the reason that, of course, these skills are trainable. Perhaps the people are serious about learning these skills, and of course some things will come with experience, but some kind of training can also help people emerge, people change, and become better and better in their roles, right? And perhaps in times to come also can become leaders themselves, right? So these are some of the skills that are important in terms of understanding whether leaders can be trained or not, right? And in terms of public sector organization, you see that when there are a lot of stakeholders involved, what kind of skill set would be required? Your toughness, you being resilient, you have strong communication skills, you make use of your power resources to make the situation much more effective for you as a public leader. Of course, we'll talk about some of the roles of the public leaders separately, but this is what I wanted to talk about in terms of very generic way of looking at what kind of skills there can be, right? Now comes the another important thing that require a discussion is the aspect of leadership and management. As processes, what do you think? These processes are same or different? And also you can refer to the work of Cotter here, published in the Harvard Business Review. The article titled is "What Leaders Really Do." So, in terms of leadership and management, if you look at some, authors have mentioned about the, there's an overlap between the qualities of the leadership and, the process of leadership and the process of management. Some said that they are different, right? So, it says that leadership and management, they require different kind of, I would say, skills to manage the process. If you look at leadership as a process and management as a process would require different kind of skills, distinct kind of skills, right? Because each one, leadership and management, the way which they influence the outcomes are different, right? So distinct but complementary skills, right? So leadership and management, they have the skill set, but the means through which they try to achieve the outcomes are different, right? So because they take different ways. So it says that to be effective, in the equation, the author says that one need to master both the skill set, leadership as well as management. Now let's look at what are the major point of differences that the author mentioned in terms of differentiating management versus leadership. As per the author, management, they are equating much more with coping with the complexity. It says that management is more about coping with complexity and leadership is more about coping with change process. You remember in the previous slide also we talked about this process of leadership is about preparing organization for change, right? So these are some of the point of differences that the author mentioned, which I am going to now talk to you about this thing. So also when we talk about the discussion on management functions in the module 2, when we were talking about the administrative school of management thought, and we talked about some of the management functions. So we talked about the role of the managers, right? In terms of, we talked about managers plan, they budget, they organize, they work on staffing, they control, right? So this is some of the functions of the management, and we'll discover what they are doing in this and what is about leadership which is differentiating from them, right? Now as a skill, if you look at planning and budgeting, when managers plan, what they do, what do you think the managers will do when in case of planning? Planning is all about setting the objectives, goals of the organization. You also talk about the setting goals for the organization. That is the planning function of the organization, right? Also when you set the goals are being set, you also have to find out ways to accomplish those goals, right? You have to find out how as a manager you will plan in accomplishing those goals. Planning is about, of course, goal setting is one thing. You have set the goals and purposes. Now you also have to think about the plans to achieve. So that's another important function. Now manager's duty is also, when the means are being set, right? What about the resources? Who will procure the resources, right? It's basically to actually allocate resources, allocation of resources. So we talked about the roles as prescribed by proposed by, I would say, by Henry Mint's work. There also we talked about that managers, they allocate resources, right? That's another important role. Allocation of resources is the managerial function. So managers, they allocate resources, because without resources, how will you accomplish plans? And in terms of budgeting, you have to keep track of how much money is being spent, because you don't want to waste resources. You want to use resources optimal utilization of resources is that's why we chose that managers, they try to direct things, they try to control, right? That's the budgeting aspect of this. Vis-a-vis, if you look at in the skill set of leaders in coping with change, leaders actually, they have vision. They have more to do with giving organization a direction, in terms of where the organization is heading. Okay, what kind of change is required, right? What kind of change is required for the organization to grow, right? There's a vision, there is a direction, what kind of strategies would be required for the organization to grow further. That is the idea of the leadership there, in terms of setting the direction we are talking about. Okay, then if we talk about the management skill, it is more about organizing and staffing, which we have talked about already in the management function, but I'm just going to give you what is the meaning of organizing. When we talked about the organization structure, we have talked about that various jobs are created in these structures, right? Structure is created and then jobs are set in those structures, because people have to fulfill the work. People have to fill the jobs and then work on the tasks which are being given to them, because then only we will be able to achieve the goals. So when we say that people are to put in places there, managers' role is to find fit between the jobs and the people's skill set. So they will find out the right match between people and people's skills and the job requirement, and if they require some kind of training, and that training is to be provided. And that's we have seen in large number of organizations when recruitment happens, there is not a perfect match. They look for a match, but whenever they feel that this organization member is going to have a potential, then they recruit that person, and then of course put in that person into track of training, which is more or to do with matching the skill sets with the job requirements, right? And of course telling people about their responsibilities, telling them delegate the work to these people, and of course work on the systems to get work done. On the other hand, if you look at skill set of the leadership, it is basically more of the aligning people with what? Aligning people with the vision of the organization. You need to convince through your communication to people that how they should align their efforts with the goals, vision of the organization, right? So what happen is you need to ensure right fit between what people think about the vision of the organization and what is the organization vision is, so that the organizational members can align their vision, or align their efforts or the work with the organizational vision, which is a larger I would say direction. So when I talk about discuss about the role of role that Dr. Anil Khandelwal played in terms of bringing transformation in terms of vision, how he interacted with the lot of employees of the organization, how he write a lot of letters and emails or reports to people in terms of aligning the efforts with the organization mission of organization mission to change Bank of Baroda to a different growth level, right? So it is more of finding alignment between the people and the vision of the organization. Now then we talked about in terms of the managerial the function, it is more about control and solving the problems, right? When we say controlling the various activities of the organization, it can also have look at the results, what are the results being produced, right? Then if there are deviations from the goals that we have set and the outcomes that we have received, then also they have to work to how to overcome that particular gap, how to improve the performance of the system, right? Solving the problems, if there are problems, the managers will have to intervene and solve those problems. Also when it is required to there's some kind of process changes are required, they are the one who will also make the process changes. Whereas if you look at the aspect of leadership, it's more to do with engage and inspire, engaging people and inspiring people, right? It's basically involving others in the vision involving others, how they can contribute in the achievement of the organizational vision. Also, they provide lot of coaching to people. There's a lot of feedback being given to people, and whenever the work is done good and the organization is achieving better and better in terms of the work outcomes, or the outcomes are going near to the vision achievement, there will always be celebration, and the success is being rewarded in that way, right? So these are some of the point of differences, or would say some of the the distinct the skill set which is required by the managers and the leaders. Please refer to this particular interesting title to get more details about it. I've just talked about very basic generic way to tell you about how things work here, right? Okay, then now what we'll do is we are going to talk about the evolution in the leadership research, because now I talked about that we will also briefly review the theories of leadership. So what we will do is we will look into the broad the approaches, theoretical approaches of leadership as given in literature. So what we will do is we will start with the discussion on the trait approaches. Now the idea of trait approaches was on identification of the traits, or we'll say that the traits or the attributes which are actually related to the success of the leadership. So the focus of the trait approaches was on finding out if some traits are there which are actually important for the leadership success. So that's what is the idea of trait approaches. So we will look into the trait approaches, little more detail about what is the contributions of the trait approaches. Then the as per evolution, as the time with the different researchers picked up the different kind of work in terms of identification of the limitation in the trait approaches, then the school shifted from trait to behavioral approaches. Now behavioral approaches, the contributors were actually focused, shifted from identification of the traits. The trait theories were actually focusing on identification of the traits for leadership success. Behavioral approaches, on the other hand, they sought to look for, they sought to identify what kind of behaviors which were more related to the leadership effectiveness, right? So if you look at in the behavioral theories, they largely talked about important behaviors as task oriented behaviors, or relationship oriented behaviors. And these days research also start talking about change oriented behaviors. We'll talk about the research also, right? Especially we'll talk about the research of Fernandez, Cho and Perry, published in Leadership Quarterly, on especially exploring the integrated leadership roles that the leaders play. So we'll talk about that particular paper also. Then after that, what happened is there's evolution. Then there was lot other limitations being found. So they said no, it's about, we need to talk about the situational factors also, because situational factors are also very important in terms of leadership research, right? So the focus shifted on that the situational variable actually explain how leadership behaviors are related to the performance. So this is again the focus of the leadership theories changes, that the leaders have to be very much well aware of the situational component. They have to deal with the situational component if they have to be effective. So the contributions of, we will look into the contributions of Fred Fiedler's the LPC theory, or we look into path goal theory. Then of course we will have discussion on situational leadership model by Hershey and Blanchard. We'll briefly review all these models just for an understanding. Then comes the dyadic leadership theory. It's focusing on leader-member exchange, right? It focuses on the vertical relationship between followers and the leader, and we'll see what the kind of work the leadership, dyadic leadership, LMX theory has to offer in terms of understanding of leadership in today's context, right? They have talked about the aspect of mutual trust, high levels of commitment, support from leaders in terms of high exchange relationship between leaders and the followers. I'm just trying to briefly tell you here, but when I go there in the theory, I will tell you in little more details about all these aspects, right? Now what happened after that, there is a lot of leadership styles that have emerged, right? From contingency theory to the other. Now we'll see that if you look at the approaches, how leadership theory has evolved, a lot of styles now have come. Transformational leadership, transactional leadership, ethical leadership, servant leadership, empowering leadership. So a lot of new leadership styles have now come up, and still it is evolving. So that's how the trace is now happening in the evolutionary leadership research. Now, if you look at the transformational leadership, the focus of transformational leadership is on change. Changing what? Change the processes, structures or culture. And what kind of mechanisms a leader use in transformational leadership is they have compelling vision, right? They have charismatic quality, and that's how they make use of these means to bring in the impact, in the in the performance there, right? Then comes the servant leadership, another important leadership style. And in the public sector organization, if you look at, this style is also being looked at in terms of the research area. So here what happened is servant leadership is all about, if you look at in terms of the corporate organization, servant leadership is all about, serving before self, followers before self. You have to serve your followers, right? You are serving them. You are followers are important, and they are at forefront, and you are you are at back, in a sense that serving followers before self, right? So in terms of, if you look at in terms of government and public sector organization, it's all about serving the citizens, right? The idea is to serve the citizens. And if you look at the reference number 2 here, Van Mart, they have also specifically talked about servant leadership in the context of serving the citizens as far as political the literature or political theorists are concerned, right? And then finally what is happening is this multifaceted leadership research, integrating various approaches to leadership. What works? Different models combined, different types of style depending upon, and that's nature, how the nature of leadership is changing in terms of evolution, right? So this is about broadly the evolution of leadership research. We are going to now trace this leadership theory. I am going to give you brief of each one of these models for your understanding, because we are talking about the important topic, which is leadership. And if you don't talk about these theories, the discussion is not complete, right? So we'll first talk about these important leadership theories, and then we will move into the discussion on the integrated leadership theory for public sector organization, role of leaders in the public sector organization. We will also look into the 2 important cases. I will link those cases with the integrated theory of leadership and role of public leaders, and then we will go to development of the culture and its relationship with the leadership types there, right? And before that, we will have those detailed discussion. There will also be discussion section on Indian insights on leadership in public sector undertakings. That's another important discussion that I have to make. And then finally, I will conclude this particular module with discussion on developing effective working relationships, right? So I'll close here. I will continue the discussion in the next session on tracing the evolution of the leadership research.